In a world where men are told to impress, chase, and prove, many end up feeling lost, exhausted, and disconnected from their true selves. But what if attraction, respect, and deep fulfillment don't come from chasing validation, but from mastering yourself? This video isn't about surface-level tactics or quick-fix advice. It's a journey inward into self-mastery, calm presence, and quiet strength. Inspired by timeless Stoic wisdom, we'll uncover why emotional maturity, discipline, and purpose are far more powerful than charm or status. You'll learn why the man who doesn't need to prove himself is the one others can't ignore, and why the deepest respect comes not from being loud, but from being solid. If you've ever felt not enough in a noisy world, this message is for you. Because real attraction begins when you stop chasing and start becoming. Stay with this till the end. It may shift everything. What most men get wrong about attraction, let's be honest with ourselves. How many times have you thought that if only you were more handsome, wealthier, or more successful, then everything would change? That you'd attract attention, earn admiration, and finally attain what people call value? But what if I told you that the very things you're chasing, looks, status, wealth, are actually making you weaker? This is a brutal truth. Most men are lost, trying to impress with what they think matters. But what truly draws women and life itself is not on the surface. It lies at the core: self-mastery, calmness, and inner strength. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus spoke of this thousands of years ago. They didn't write books about seduction. They wrote about how to live in a way that honors your own soul. They understood women are not drawn to desperation. They are drawn to a man who is in control of himself. You can see this in everyday life. A man who does everything to score points with a woman, places her on a pedestal, and becomes emotionally dependent on her validation. But what he doesn't realize is this: the harder he tries to be accepted, the more value he loses. When you seek validation from the outside, you give away your inner power. And when you lose your power, you lose respect. A woman doesn't want a man who needs her to feel whole. She wants a man who is already whole within himself. A man who doesn't beg for love but embodies value and strength. And this is where it begins. The secret isn't in what you say, what you do, or how you look. It's in who you are when you stop trying to impress anyone. The journey to becoming an unshakable man doesn't start with winning someone's heart. It starts with facing yourself and building self-control, emotional maturity, ethical living, and purpose. So if you've ever failed to gain recognition, if you've ever felt not enough, pause for a moment. It's not that you weren't good enough. It's that you were trying to become something that was never yours to begin with. This is the time to shift your perspective, not to attract someone, but to become the kind of man no one wants to lose, not even yourself. Remember, true attraction doesn't begin by conquering others. It begins by conquering yourself, and that's what most men never understand. The Stoic key to becoming unshakably attractive. There is a kind of magnetism that doesn't come from looks, money, or fame. It doesn't come from eloquent words, from pleasing others, or trying to win approval. It comes from stillness in the mind, composure in your responses, and a quiet strength that needs no proving. It's the kind of attraction born from a man who lives by the Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the truth most of the modern world has forgotten. They say you must grab attention, make an impression, or stand out in a crowd. But truly powerful men, the ones the world deeply respects, don't need to do anything. They simply show up, and their presence carries a kind of energy that cannot be ignored because it comes from someone who has mastered himself. You can feel it in the way he walks slow but certain, in his eyes aware but unshaken, in his words few but meaningful, and in his demeanor clear boundaries but no need for force. The Stoic man isn't attractive because he tries to be. He is attractive because he no longer needs to be. He isn't swayed by praise or insult. He doesn't bend to being liked or disliked. He doesn't crave approval because he has already approved of himself. And paradoxically, that's when people begin to be drawn in. Emotional control is the first foundation. The Stoic man doesn't let emotions dictate behavior. When rejected, he responds with understanding, not hurt. When insulted, he stays composed, not angry. He doesn't get tossed around by every wave. He steers his own ship through every storm. Inner independence is the second. He doesn't live for others' validation. He doesn't need someone to tell him he's worthy because he has already proven his worth through his actions, his ethics, and his daily choices. And finally, a purpose beyond himself. The Stoic man doesn't live to chase pleasure or comfort. He lives for principle, for growth, for truth. He doesn't chase gratification, he seeks discipline. When a man controls his emotions, detaches from external approval, and lives with purpose, he becomes unshakable. This is not something you do on a date. This is something you become over a lifetime. And once you become that kind of man, not only women but other men, colleagues, competitors, friends will sense your grounded presence. No one wants to lose a man like that. And more importantly, you'll never lose yourself. That is true attraction, and it starts from within. Practicing this power in real-life theory can inspire you, but only action can transform you. If you want to become the kind of man who is strong, grounded, and deeply attractive, just as the Stoic path teaches, then you must start with practical steps. Not flashy gestures, not alpha catchphrases, but quiet habits and daily discipline. So, how do you begin? 1. Let go of attachment to outcomes. One of the biggest mistakes men make is obsessing over how others respond, especially women. You text and wait for a reply. You express yourself and hope to impress. You invest emotionally, then expect equal returns. That's attachment. And when you're attached, you lose yourself. Stoicism teaches us the first truth. Happiness doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling yourself. You cannot control someone's feelings, reactions, or choices. What you can control is your own attitude, integrity, and behavior. Remember, a magnetic man doesn't draw people in because everyone accepts him. He draws people in because he doesn't need everyone to. To master your emotions, don't react unconsciously ignored. Don't lash out. Praised, don't get carried away. Rejected, don't believe you're not enough. Pause, observe, detach from the reaction. Stay composed. Marcus Aurelius said, "When you are offended, remember it is your mind that allows the offense." No one can make you lose control unless you allow them to. Every time you stay calm in the face of criticism, you are training strength. Every time you walk away from pointless conflict, you are sharpening your discipline. And every time you leave without explanation, you are becoming unshakable. 3. Stop seeking validation, build real confidence. Confidence doesn't come from likes. It doesn't come from compliments. It doesn't come from being chosen. Confidence comes from knowing who you are and how you live each day. Seneca said, "The wise man is content with himself." You don't need anyone to approve of you when you've lived with honesty, integrity, purpose, and have kept your word to yourself. Want confidence? Don't talk, act. Act rightly, even when no one sees. Hold your values even when no one praises you. Keep moving forward even when no one walks beside you. 4. Aim higher than comfort. A man cannot be resilient if all he seeks is comfort. You want to be attractive? Don't live just to please yourself. Choose purpose over pleasure. Choose discipline over mood. Choose right action, not liked action. When you live this way, something remarkable happens. You no longer need to prove yourself, because how you live is proof enough. And in today's world where most people chase external validation, a man who masters himself is the one who stands out. Not loud, not flashy, not fake, just calm, wise, and deeply grounded. That's what makes others want to stay. But even if they don't, you lose nothing, because you already have everything within yourself. The unshakable man, and why women don't want to let him go. This is a truth many men don't want to hear. But if you are brave enough to accept it, it might change your entire life. You're not attractive because you try to be attractive. You become attractive naturally the moment you stop trying. Not because you don't care, but because you've become someone who no longer needs to prove anything. In today's world, most men are still trying to be liked. They study how to talk charmingly. They learn strategies to score points with women. They relentlessly strive to become a version others want them to be. But what they don't realize is this: the man women don't want to let go of is the one who doesn't need them to feel valuable. He controls his emotions instead of letting emotions control him. When rejected, he doesn't collapse. When adored, he doesn't become blind. When misunderstood, he doesn't rush to explain. He stands firm in the storm of emotions because he has trained for it every day. No one can push him away because he doesn't lose himself. He doesn't live to be chosen. He lives to stay true to his values. This man doesn't chase after someone hastily because he understands that what's truly valuable never needs to be rushed. He also doesn't fear losing anyone because he doesn't claim to own anyone. He knows if someone leaves because he didn't please them enough, that person was never a partner, just a consumer of emotions. And he doesn't live to serve someone else's insecurities. He has a purpose, and he lives for something greater than himself. A man who lives with purpose cannot be manipulated, not for show, not to make money to feel validated, but for what he deeply believes in: discipline, contribution, learning, building, even when no one is watching. That's the kind of man who can't be easily replaced. Not because he's perfect, but because he's rare. Rare to find someone steady in a world full of confusion. Rare to find someone silent where everyone screams for attention. Rare to find someone who doesn't show off, yet radiates influence. And women notice that, not through logic, but through instinct. They feel safe around him, not because he protects them, but because he doesn't need anything from them to feel whole. They respect him, not because he dominates, but because he's not swept away by the crowd. They admire him, not because he's flawless, but because he keeps evolving. This man doesn't talk much. He doesn't boast. He doesn't need to impress, because his steadiness, calmness, and focus are already irresistible, not just to women, but to life itself. And the best part, you can become that man. Not by changing who you are, but by returning to the strongest version of yourself, the version that's always been there. You just need to stop chasing others and start mastering yourself. The weight of silence, the power of not needing to prove. Picture a noisy room. People are talking over each other. Everyone wants to assert, to impress, to prove something about themselves. But in one quiet corner, there's a man who doesn't speak. He doesn't try to cut in. He doesn't seek attention. He doesn't need to win the argument. He simply sits, calm, composed, in full control of himself. And that very silence draws everyone's eyes to him. True strength doesn't need to perform. And the Stoic man knows this better than anyone. Today's world teaches you to be recognized, speak louder. To be liked, always be visible. To be respected, prove you're superior. But those with true inner strength don't need any of that, because they know that silence, when used wisely, carries more weight than any spoken word. Where does that silence come from? From knowing oneself, from not needing to prove to feel worthy, from a mind that has moved beyond the craving to be seen and has started to cherish stillness. That silence isn't weakness. It's a sign of strength, of someone who doesn't react hastily, who isn't easily pulled into emotional power games, who doesn't let the fear of being ignored disrupt his inner peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "To be calm in the midst of noise is a sign of someone who has mastered himself." The Stoic man doesn't need to win arguments to feel right, doesn't need victory to feel strong, doesn't need approval to know he has value. He knows truth doesn't need to shout. It stands firm in silence. And here's the paradox. That silence makes people listen more. When you don't try to get attention, you become magnetic. When you don't seek to win, you earn respect. When you don't say too much, every word you speak carries weight. The weak seek to show their power. The strong only need to be present. Calmness, composure, and insight create a quiet power that's impossible to deny. Such a man doesn't need to say, "This is who I am." He lets silence and the quality of his life speak for him. Ask yourself, are you silent out of fear, or because you've reached a depth that needs no display? If it's the latter, you've entered the domain of real men, where silence is not an escape, but a declaration. Strength of character is a way of life, not a tactic. There's a truth most modern men avoid facing. They treat strength of character as a tool, something to activate when they need to appear bold, confident, fearless. But they forget, true character isn't something you turn on when needed. It's a way of life forged daily. Strength of character doesn't come from dramatic moments. It's not built in flashy speeches or risky public decisions. It's built in sleepy mornings when you still get up early, in moments when others delay, but you act right away, when no one's watching, and you still keep your promise to yourself. It's not about performance, it's about presence. A strong man doesn't need to shout, "I'm tough," because every small action in his life says it for him. The way he holds his principles under temptation, the way he stays calm under insult, the way he gets up after falling, every time. Seneca once said, "True strength lies not in never being defeated, but in never being broken." A man of character isn't someone who never fails. He's someone who doesn't let failure deform his identity. He doesn't live to avoid pain, but to face it with his spine straight. So what is strength of character, if not a tactic? It's a clear way of living. It's knowing who you are, what values you live by, and refusing to trade them for temporary ease. It's taking responsibility for yourself. No blaming, no excuses. It's continuing forward, even with sweat dripping and legs trembling. Not for applause, but because you know this is what must be done. Character doesn't need to be performed. It needs to be lived. You don't need someone to certify your resilience. You just need to show up for each day with courage, with honesty, and with yourself. This is how the Stoic man walks. Step by step, slow, steady, without theatrics, because he knows character is not something you use. It's something you become. Emotional maturity, from craving to understanding. Some men believe themselves to be strong until a single rejection leaves their minds in turmoil. A cold glance causes them to collapse. An unanswered message keeps them restless through the night. Why is that? Because they haven't truly matured emotionally. They live driven by craving, not by understanding. Craving makes you need someone else to feel complete. You seek attention, validation, and recognition, as if without them, you have no worth. You enter relationships not to share, but to be filled. But the danger is, anyone who holds your emotions holds control over you. In contrast, understanding helps you look deeply into yourself. You begin to see that all emotions are merely waves on the surface of the mind. No one truly hurts you, only your expectations clashing with reality. No one makes you sad. It's just that you haven't learned to sit quietly with sorrow. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone causes you anger, remember that you have given them the power to do so." Emotional maturity begins when you reclaim that power, when you no longer let others decide whether you should be happy or sad, when you understand that emotions are signals, not commands. You can observe without being dominated. You can understand yourself instead of reacting hastily. Transitioning from craving to understanding is a turning point. It transforms you from someone begging for love into someone who knows how to love without demanding. It helps you evolve from a mind easily hurt into a mind as steadfast as a rock amidst crashing waves. Emotional maturity doesn't make you indifferent. It makes you free. You're no longer led by allure, fear of loss, or the desire to control. You can love without clinging. You can let go without resentment. You can stay, but also walk away with serenity. That's the pinnacle of a man who knows who he is. No need to prove anything. Just live clearly with a heart trained by reason. Because in the end, you don't need anyone to save you from your emotions. You just need to mature to know how to step out of that darkness yourself. Ethics and purpose, pillars of a true man. Look around. How many men live drifting lives, rushing to work, chasing money, building images, hurrying into love, but lacking an inner anchor? A man may be strong, intelligent, charming, but without these two ethics and purpose, all is fleeting. Ethics aren't sermons or standards imposed to judge others. They are the principles you uphold even when no one is watching. They are how you remind yourself, I won't betray my values for applause. I won't speak what I don't believe, just to be accepted. I won't live as others wish, but as my conscience guides. A man with ethics stands firm when everything around him shakes. He may fail, be misunderstood, be rejected, but he doesn't lose his dignity. Because dignity isn't granted by others, it's something he chooses to keep through silent decisions each day. And purpose? It's not the loud goals you write on a board each year. It's the deepest calling within you, the thing that makes you want to live more kindly, strongly, and usefully. When you live with purpose, you're no longer swayed by recognition, not blurred by short-term desires. You don't waste time proving yourself because you're living to serve something greater than yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste the rest of your life thinking about what others are doing, unless it serves a common purpose." A man living with ethics and purpose doesn't need to compete with anyone. He focuses on right actions, not standout actions. And that makes him stand out most in the crowd. In a world where chaos, deceit, and the pursuit of results reign, the man with ethics and purpose becomes the keeper of the flame. He doesn't just live for himself, but lives to pass on what's right to those who follow. Because he understands a beautiful life is a life of service. Not serving fame, not serving ego, but serving truth and values. You may lose everything, money, status, the one you love. But if you still hold on to ethics and purpose, you've never truly lost. You still have yourself. And that's where all strength begins. Change your perspective. Change your life. Every person lives in a world, but have you ever paused to ask, where does that world truly reside outside of you or within you? Stoicism has taught this for thousands of years. We do not suffer because of things, but because of how we view them. The same event, one person collapses, another rises. The difference doesn't lie in circumstances, but in perspective. You were rejected in a relationship? You could see it as proof that you're not worthy, or see it as an opportunity to return to yourself and love more deeply. You failed at work? You could see it as humiliation, or has a costly lesson that brings you closer to true strength. Perspective is something entirely within your control. You don't need to change the world. You only need to change how you see the world. And from there, the world you live in also changes. But why is this so difficult? Because we were raised to believe everything must go our way for us to be happy. Others must validate, love, and respect us for us to feel valuable. That is the trap. When you hand over all your emotions to the outside world, you turn yourself into a slave to circumstances. And when circumstances change, you lose control. A man of inner strength understands the outside world will always shift, but the inner world, that is where you build solidity each day. You can't control what others say, but you can control what you choose to believe. You can't choose everything that happens to you, but you can choose how you respond to it. The truth is, every time you change your perspective, you don't just change how you feel. You change your entire experience of life. You shift from resentment to gratitude, from self-pity to maturity, from avoidance to courageous presence. This is not blind positive thinking. This is the wisdom of conscious choice, choosing to look deeper at the essence, choosing to look beyond the ego, choosing to look farther than the immediate. And then you realize life doesn't change because you try to control everything. Life changes when you change your perspective and begin to master yourself.